Firmware fiasco, Bambu bars upgrade bricks unit, Creality's PEI plate proves powerless for picky nylon, and Molten Mass massacres machine a mere month after made in print. All this and more. PrintFix Friday, episode 193. Let's get into it. Starting off, we got someone asking if this is too much cooling for PLA. We can see we've got an Ender 3, they've added a 5015 blower fan, replacing that stock 4010 to try to get better cooling, and well, it's helped, but they're wondering if it's helped a little bit too much. We can see that the PEI plate itself has completely separated from that magnet as the part is either cooling down mid-print. So looking at this, I'm wondering if this is actually real PLA and it isn't some sort of PLA blend. PLA doesn't do this, right? PLA doesn't warp anywhere near as bad. Yes, PLA can have some warping to it, especially on really big prints, but this is not a big print, this is not something with a ton of thermal mass, and it's certainly not deep enough into the print where this is a particular concern. So something else is amiss here. Yes, you can just print some bed clips and send it, but realistically, that kind of moves away from what we're actually trying to do, which is solve the problem, because something here is warping, and that's not right. Now, I will say, kudos, it looks like you got a perfect first layer because it didn't release when the part started to warp. But everything that I'm seeing is indicative of a machine that isn't hot enough, and yet this top surface here, it looks decent. You can definitely tell it started to warp a little bit on those corners, but the backside doesn't look great at all. I'm leaning toward that this isn't actually PLA, and if it is PLA, it's not good PLA. I would rerun this test with a different roll of PLA from a completely different brand and see how that works. Might we recommend Printed Solids Jesse PLA? Absolutely love their material. They're great people, but if you happen to be near the Michigan area, Polar Filament is awesome as well. We're going to be going up there at some point in the near future to see how they make some really awesome bioplastics that they make up there at Polar. But there are lots of other options, and I'm sure there are going to be people in those comments telling you where you can get other material from. But PLA doesn't do this. ABS does this, nylon does this, even PETG can do this, but not normally this bad. Technically, you can overcool PLA. It doesn't really do this. What it ends up doing is losing its interlayer bonding strength. To fix that, you just heat the crap out of it as you're cooling the crap out of it, and bada bing, bada boom. It works again. But realistically, if you're just trying to solve the problem, you could print some bed clips, you can go old school and put some binder clips on that build plate. There are tons of options to keep the build plate from warping. But my bet is something is amiss about that filament. What do you guys think? Let me know in those comments. And hey, welcome to the channel. This is PrintFix Friday. My name is Grant. This is 3D Musketeers. And hey, if you're having issues with your machines, we don't like that here at all. We want to help you get your printers back to printing with purpose. If you have any issues, you could reach out to us, slide into those DMs, email us, or our preferred method, film a video and tag us in the description of it on YouTube. We'll get a notification. It's a really cool way to show more than, you know, just pictures. We're here to help. It doesn't cost a dime either. But if you do want to support, links are in that description where you can also get some awesome merch. Moving on to a FlashForge 85M where they have filament stuck in the nozzle. They're trying everything to get it out. They're out of ideas and options. What do? You put it back in the machine, you heat the crap out of it, and you just push new filament through it. Should work completely fine. If that fails for some reason, you can use an Allen key. Be careful. You can get Allen keys that are roughly the right size, like a 1.7 millimeter Allen key, should push in no problem. But be careful. If you push too hard, you'll disconnect the nozzle, you'll end up upsetting things, and it's a whole nightmare. You don't want to deal with it. Just be careful if you use the Allen key. But generally speaking, you just push out what's in there and replace it with new stuff. It's a simple, easy thing to solve, and it's exactly how we would solve this if we were dealing with this. A lot of printers now come with filament cutters because companies don't like dealing with that tip forming problem when you go to pull material out of the hot end. It's easier just to cut it and then purge it all out later on. And while I don't necessarily disagree with that from a ease of use standpoint, I certainly disagree with it from a quality of life standpoint and a waste standpoint, because I don't want to have to put poop buckets on the backs of my machines. I need to do that. We just got some more +4s, and they're pooping all over the shelf and the floor. But the easy way to do this, just feed new filament in. It's how Bambus do it. It's how a lot of other brands are starting to do it, because it's not efficient for material, but it's efficient for time. It's a lot safer for the end user because they don't have to deal with that tip forming problem. And it leaves your filament cut perfectly, so it's really easy to put back into any printer, let alone the one you took it out of. Hope that helps. If you guys have any other ideas on what to do about this, let me know in the comments, but I think you're either going to force it out with an Allen key or new filament. Those are the only two ways in my book. Next up, one of those things that makes you wonder just because you can doesn't mean you should, but does further prove the level of control that Bambu has over printers. We had an overzealous user in the Bambu Lab subreddit say the P1S to X1 upgrade is in fact possible, but Bambu will not let you. The TLDR of this, and there's a great write-up if you do want to read through it, we'll link to it in that description. This individual got all the components to upgrade a P1S to an X1 Carbon, and well, for the most part, it worked until it called home. And when it called home, Bambu is now forcing a firmware update that the machine can't do because Bambu themselves won't assign it a new key. Now, to be clear, pretty much nobody would ever try this. It's not financially smart. It is more of a because you can, not because you should thing. But companies that sell different models of printers that have obvious upgrade paths often allow you to make the upgrade path. Like if you have a Prusa Mark II, you can upgrade all the way to the Core 1, and Prusa lets you do that. Sure, there's a lot of intermediary steps you need to take, but it's no big deal. But I think where this user went wrong is that they tried to go to the X1E, the Enterprise, rather than just the X1 Carbon. The Enterprise is a little bit trickier. It's not as easy to work on in our experience because of some of the different firmware things that Bambu has done. Specifically, the kill switches for the internet and the Wi-Fi, whether it's the corded or the cordless. That is not present on any other Bambu machine. So I think that it's potentially where they had the issue. This user who had a P1S that was completely fried decided, heck, I got stuff on hand for X1E and X1C, might as well just swap the brains and see what happens. And it's crazy to me that it even worked to begin with. It's super cool, and theoretically they've got most of the electronics and the hardware that's needed, but because it does still throw some errors, I'm not too surprised that Bambu got angry at it. Bambu uses your serial number, and there's hardware IDs as well, and if those don't match up perfectly, you get a mismatch in firmware, and things just start to get angry. It's why I can likely never update my X1 Carbon, because I was in the beta program for X1 Plus, and my printer was the one that we built the entire offline system on, because mine is not only still running like 1.0.4 base firmware, like really, really old base firmware, it has also never been connected to the internet since it's been in my hands. So we've always kept it offline in a way that we can play with it and experiment with it. And because of these mismatch things, if I try to update from where I think it's on like 1.7.3 running off the SD card, it will have to jump so far that it likely won't succeed and end up failing, similar to what happened with this individual. But I mean, it works, so I'm not gonna do any of that. But we can see that after they attempted for many weeks with over 7 pages of back and forth messages to Bambu, Bambu basically said they can't for reasons such as safety concerns, and we just can't do it. One, I know Bambu can do it. We've seen them do stuff like this in the past where they just randomly assign hardware keys to things. It's not that freaking difficult. And 2, safety concerns? Really? Come on, Bambu. You're just a broken record at this point, hiding behind safety concerns as the answer for why we can't do something. After a few days' time, they got this update showing the firmware version is abnormal. Repairing and updating are required before printing. Do you want to update now? You can also update later. And unfortunately, the update fails. Now, this is an X1E, it thinks, and I believe that firmware is quite old. They are debating on putting X1 Plus on it, and I kind of think that's the right move. I think that would be the only possible way to make this work. I have a feeling the X1 Plus guys would really like to tinker with this and see what they can do and what they can get by, because I do believe this is running a pretty old version of the software, which should still have some of the quite egregious 0-day concerns that were in Bambu's own firmware since day one, which they only fixed after we hinted at it on a podcast, so they clearly knew about it. But this brings up the question of an individual's right to choose. I see both sides of this. Bambu doesn't want you to just hodgepodge a machine together and say, give me hardware key, please and thanks. But as an owner, I should be able to apply parts that I get to my machine and it still function, even if it functions a little bit differently. The same way that if I engine swapped my car, I expect it to work. Maybe I'm going to a bigger engine and maybe I need to reflash the actual computer of the car itself for it to function properly, but I expect the bulk of the vehicle to still operate properly. What this is basically saying is you change a couple of body panels, maybe you change some spark plugs and a computer or two, and now you can't even start your car. I'd be very curious to know if you went completely back, like buy the stuff to make it a P1S again, would it work again? If it does, then it's not really a down thing on Bambu. Like, I can be upset at it, but at the same time understand it. If Bambu hard bricks this printer and keeps it from ever working again because an individual decided to have a little experiment and want to learn more, I guess I have a bit of a problem with that. I totally understand keeping users from getting a cheaper machine, adding the parts to make it a nicer machine. I don't have to agree with it personally, but the business side of me does understand it. But I don't understand if they then reverted back to stock, if this would still be an issue and they would keep the machine bricked. Here's hoping they can get this machine back up and running. I know this one's gonna be a bit polarizing, and I'd love to know from you all what your thoughts are. Because personally, I'm kind of on the fence with this one. I see both sides of this. I want to be mad at Bambu, but I also kind of completely expected this. But I would say if Prusa did something like this, I'd be pretty pissed, because this isn't the ethos that Prusa is built upon. It's the ethos that Bambu is built upon, which is you're in our system. If you don't like it, too bad. You don't have a choice. Our walled garden, the walls just keep going up. It's like they're made of bamboo. Never try to get rid of Bambu by running it over with a lawnmower. It was not fun. There's bamboo everywhere. Anyways, am I giving Bambu the pass on this because I'm expecting this kind of crappy behavior out of them? Am I starting to become jaded to some of these bad business practices that Bambu is doing? Or is it just this is what we expect at this point from them and users should know better? Let me know your thoughts. I feel like if this was any other company, we all would be rightfully upset about it. I don't know why I'm not as upset with Bambu right now. What do you think? Next up, why can't I get PA6CF to stick to a K2 Plus PEI bed? They've been drying the filament for the last day after it came from Amazon. They're not able to get a simple print with no supports to adhere to the bed, so they went with rafts, and now they can't seem to get the raft to lay down right either. They're printing at 300 Celsius with the bed at 90 C, and then it goes down to 80 C for the remaining layers. Fidgeted with some of those settings, but they didn't get better results. So what's going on here? We've got a big nylon print. Nylon's a real pain to print with. Carbon fiber, so the CF here, makes it much easier to print with because it's less likely to warp on us. And sure, small parts, super easy to print, no big deal. Bigger parts, on the other hand, much harder to print. With nylon, you need to be careful of what nylon it is. Not all PA6CFs are created equal. We know that Polymaker's nylon, whatever they're doing to it, prints at a much colder temperature, and specifically much colder bed temperature than most other nylons or polyamides on the market. Why? Who knows? For a lot of people, they actually like this because it means they don't have to cook their machines. But nylon does need to be very, 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 very dry. If you think it's dry, keep drying it. It doesn't like 0.4 millimeter nozzles. You really want to use a 0.6 with nylon, especially with carbon fiber. And if it's regular PA6CF, you want as hot as that bed can go. 110, great. 115, even better. PA6 loves heat. And note, it is harder to print with than PA12 in my experience. Might be time to get PA12 instead of PA6. It depends. Heck, Polymaker even makes a PA612. But I do not recommend adjusting your bed temperature in the middle of a print. I don't care what it is. PLA, keep it at 65. PETG, keep it at 85 or lower depending on your build plates. For nylon, keep it at 100. You want that chamber to be baked. And if it's anything like an X1 Carbon, which it's Creality, so it's probably a lot like an X1 Carbon, you put the bed about halfway down through where the chamber fan has its intake, the auxiliary part cooling fan. Turn the auxiliary part cooling fan on like 30, 40%, turn the bed on to about 110, 120 Celsius, and then just leave it alone for like 30 minutes. Let it bake, and that fan will help circulate that hot air, sucking it away from the build plate and getting it around and circulating the chamber of the machine. Often nylon will warp because as it cools, it shrinks. To combat that, if you have your chamber being very hot as well, you've got a solution. Now, we are going to be messing around with adding chamber heaters to printers, mainly because we need that here in the shop. There's only a few companies out there that offer reasonably priced chamber heater 3D printers. And so I might have bought some heaters for resin printers. You guys want to see that on the channel? Let me know. But as far as this one goes, I'm not a huge fan of rafts. While they are good to deal with warping, they're not the best here. Now you can try the trick from Yontech where you put down like a layer of PETG or ABS and then you go ahead and print your nylon on top of it, but nylon doesn't really stick to anything, so that probably won't work as well as you might think. I would look at getting that chamber up hotter. Make sure that your bed is hot and does not change its temperature. I'm guessing that change in temperature is what's causing your issues. Without really seeing a video of it, I'm not 100% sure. This small part here looks fine, and that's pretty typical with nylon. Small parts work well, but the big parts, they need a little bit of extra help. Hopefully this helps, and hey, if you guys in the comments have any suggestions, place them down there. We'll make sure to talk about it further. Next up, any saving this hot end after a blob of death. This is a 1-month-old Creality K1 SE, and well, it had a blob of doom, and now there's just a big mess. The user doesn't want to replace anything because it's basically a brand new machine, but they want to clean it off. The best thing that you can do is put it all back together and heat it up. Keep the sock off the machine, heat it up, and the plastic should slowly melt. You can use pliers, flush cutters, but you need to be very, very careful when you do this. If you're going to heat up your hot end and then you're going to brush it or brush anything across it, make sure to turn off your printer and unplug both the heater and the thermistor when you do this. It is a high likelihood that you're going to short out the heater or the thermistor. This can blow circuit boards down the line if it's electrically connected. If it's not electrically connected, then you've done nothing wrong. You haven't shorted anything because there's no electricity going through it. So you can heat it up a lot, turn it off, pull the power, then quickly brush it down. That can help. Or you can just turn it on, put it to like 230, 240 C, and just let it kind of slowly drip. It's about the best way to do it without potentially damaging the hot end itself. By all means, have fun and learn. You're new to this, and that's okay. This is a cheap learning experience. You've learned it early on. So if you make those mistakes now, you don't make them down the line when you need this thing to work. For whatever reason, you might need it to work. Good luck there. We've all been here with this problem. It's one of the big reasons I really don't like these one-piece nozzle heater combination systems, because they make it much harder to work on. The old school method, heck, we could easily just build a test bench with a ramps board and just heat these till the cows come home, and ramps boards don't care about you, they don't care about your printer, and they certainly don't care about your hardware. They're pretty much impossible to blow. I still have an old ramps board. It's over a decade old. You could also connect the heater to a power supply, but please don't do this unless you really know what you're doing. If you're just connecting the heater, it's just gonna heat and heat and heat and heat. And while this is likely a PTC heater, it's still gonna get really freaking hot, before it, stops getting really freaking hot. You can bench this if you want. I recommend doing it in the machine. Let the machine deal with it itself. Let it just kind of slowly ooze and drip off. If you want to be a little bit careful, you can get like a Wham Bam slap mat or a silicone mat for like dog food bowls and put that underneath the nozzle, so as it drips onto that, and that's not going to damage your build plate. So a little bit of a pro tip there. Always, if you're going to be working on molten plastic, do it over silicone or something that has a high heat resistance so you don't melt other stuff. None of us have ever been there before. Certainly not me, and certainly not the names listed right next to me at the $5 tier and higher. Thank you to all of you that support these videos and make them possible. If you do like these videos and want to support, you can do so via links in that description. And hey, at the $10 tier and higher, you get to come hang out in our private Discord server where, among other things, you get access to exclusive merch discounts and live streams. You get to learn about things like when we went to Sweden, well before it was ever public to the outside world. Hope you all have enjoyed this one. Below me, check out the rest of the PrintFix Friday series, and right next to that will be one of our latest videos. That's all we have for you all today. Stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. And as always, keep making awesome. Have a good one.